It's me, MLB. Here is part 8 of Sunshower, Aizawa x female listener x present mic. Enjoy. The boys both looked at each other. This was coming to a head far quicker than they had been expecting. You had just landed in Japan literally that afternoon, and already you were making waves in your own life and rocking them with it. Hizashi really wanted to say something. You had been special to him for the longest time, but that Valentine's Day on your final year of high school had changed his ideas. Aizawa had always been there for him too. They had discussed their feelings for you back then, and he could feel that nothing had changed between him and his best male friend, and also in regards to both of their feelings for you. She will have to be the one to choose, he thought, echoing his thoughts from all those years ago. He went to open his mouth, but Aizawa spoke up then, switching up his gaze from the loud blonde to you. How do you feel about us, Yin? Aizawa then asked, turning the question back on you. You hadn't been expecting to be put on the spot like that, and you shook your head firmly. No, I asked you first, you said. I don't care what order it's in. Aizawa replied blandly. You need to answer first, because it will determine the next course of action. This isn't a procedure, you snorted lightly. This is a matter of the heart. There's no procedure to it. Yes, there is, Aizawa said. And you need to speak up first, because I know more about the situation than you do, and I'm telling you, there's a procedure. He appeared to be dead serious, but when did he ever not look dead serious? So you huffed lightly through your nose and crossed your arms across your chest. Well, you stated, you paused. Ugh, crap, how do I even begin to approach this? I like both of them. Aizawa could see the war going on inside you, and could also hear the wind picking up outside and thunder rumbling in the distance. Hizashi could tell what was going on and raised his hand. We might need to take a little break from this if it's getting too yin, he said, but Aizawa cut in. No, we're going to sort this out now, he said, keeping his eyes locked onto you. You were really starting to feel the pressure now, and the room started to fill with static electricity, making the lighter strands of your hair levitate. Hizashi was rightly getting rather nervous, but Aizawa was just waiting patiently for your answer. After standing there fidgeting for a bit and opening and closing your mouth a few times, you finally had a mini meltdown, a cloud shooting in from outside the building and hanging over your head. I don't know, it's so hard to choose. I like both of you equally. I've had so many amazing memories with both of you, and it's unfair to make me choose, you blurted out, the cloud overhead suddenly dropping hail on you. Stop! You shouted, covering your head with your hands and crouching down. Aizawa got up and walked around the table and took his jacket off to hold it over your head, while Hizashi tried to use his quirk to yell the cloud away, which worked to a certain extent, more so shocking you into releasing the cloud from your quirk. See? You said as you gingerly looked up at feeling the cloud disappear from overhead. You both help me, and you both compliment me from different angles. I can't choose. Aizawa looked at Hizashi and then down to you again. Now you know how we feel, he said. You looked up at him. What do you mean? You asked. Do you both like me? Yes, Hizashi said. I've liked you for the longest time, and I had every intention of asking you out that Valentine's Day that you spoke about in the car. But when I couldn't pay, and Shouta paid for the rest of my bouquet, it really threw me. I couldn't do it then. I couldn't be so selfish, as that's when Shouta told me that he liked you too. We spoke about it after and promised each other we would support whoever you chose. I made up my mind that it was you who would make the decision on who you wanted to be with. It couldn't come from me, and I felt like this is the same for Shouta. Aizawa nodded. Well said. I had always determined that you would make the decision, Yin, he said, pulling his jacket back to himself now that it had stopped hailing and you stood up. So, I like you both and you both like me, you stated, making sure you had it straight in your mind. And I have to be the one to pick? Both boys nodded. Well, that's unfair, isn't it? You suddenly wailed after thinking for a second. I have a solution, Aizawa then stated, and you looked up at him with begging eyes. What is it? You pleaded. It's unconventional, he said. Well, since when are you ever conventional? You teased. I take offence, he replied dryly, and you chuckled. Tell me, what is it? You asked, standing up again. Okay, he said with a head nod. Now, you don't need to agree to this, but if you truly can't choose, then this will take the decision away from you. But it won't place it on us either. It will be down to chance and luck. And? You asked, very curious now. What is it? Hizashi and I will walk down the hall and enter a classroom each, and then close the door. Aizawa said, we'll make sure that all the other doors are open, so you only have 2 doors to choose from. And then I have to pick a door? You asked with surprise. Seriously? You don't have to do this, Aizawa said again. You looked at him and then at Hizashi. Do you agree to this? You asked him. He looked mildly saddened but nodded his head. We can't choose, he said sadly. You have to choose, Yin. But either way, I respect both you and Shouta, and I want the best for you both. So if you happen to be together, you have my blessing and full support, and I hope that we can always continue to be together as friends, he said. Your heartstrings tugged in your chest, and you wanted to step into his arms and give him a big hug. He was so sweet, but he had already relinquished the hold on you. He was already talking like you and Aizawa had gotten together. And the same goes for me as well, Aizawa said. If Hizashi gets chosen, I wish you both every happiness and hope that we can continue to be friends. That's a given, boys, you said, your eyes welling with tears. No matter what happens, we'll always be the awesome trio that we are. Both boys nodded solemnly and then looked at each other. Okay, Hizashi said with a nervous breath in. Let's head to the sound booth. Aizawa nodded and pushed his hands into his pockets. Count to 20, Yin, he said over his shoulder as both boys left the room and turned right to walk down the hall. You started counting. 1. What on earth was happening right now? 2. You were really choosing your boyfriend based on who was on the other side of a door? 3. What if you regretted this? 4. What if they didn't really want this to be the way to choose? 5. You kept counting, feeling more and more sober the closer you were getting to 20. 18, you shouted out loud. 19, you shouted even louder. 20! The wind outside was starting to pick up again, whistling loudly through the cracks in the window slats. With a loud sigh, you scrunched your hands into fists and then marched towards the classroom door and out into the hall. The moon was peeking through the clouds now and was giving just enough light to the school hall so that you could see one door on the left closed and one door on the right closed. Oh, which door would the boys choose? You asked yourself as you walked down the hall and then stopped between the 2 doors. Raising your left hand up and your right hand up, you looked to your left and right, wondering which door to turn to. It was while you were standing there that you felt an emotional pull to the left. You felt like you needed to open the door on your left, so you turned and stepped up to it, placing your hand gently onto the slide bar to push the door open. Slowly you pushed on the door, sliding it along the tracks and keeping your head down as you did so. Who's in here? You asked, still with head down, your eyes tightly shut as you waited for their voice. Hello, Yin. The voice of Aizawa replied, and relief washed over you. It's you, you said, opening your now watery eyes and looking up as you ran into the room and into his embrace, your parted lips meeting his as you kissed passionately. The decision had now been made. You and your best friend Aizawa were official now. It had been a good decision to come back to Japan after all. In the other room, Hizashi had heard you enter the door opposite his, and he sighed with a little relief and slight dejection. I want the best for them. He needs her, and she needs him, and I'll be here to support them for forever, he thought, as he pushed off the desk that he had been leaning against and headed to the door to congratulate you both. Now I can hear the Aizawa stands cheering, and I can hear the Hizashi stands crying, and I can hear the Pollies screaming. So I have appeased the Aizawa stands. Thank you very much. Hopefully you're happy now that you're with your man. Now, if you will stay tuned for next week, Hizashi stands, you will get your Hizashi ending. And Pollies, you know what's coming next after that, don't you? Stay tuned for the next 2 final chapters of Sunshower next week and the week beyond, and I'll see you there.